for Wednesday, August 19th. This is the Pro and Con Show, and I'm your host, Michael James Ott. As always, thank you for watching the show. I do these shows 10 minutes, 15 minutes, every day, or sometimes I put out a batch of them over a course of days because of my schedule. I have trouble doing them every single day. But the intent for sure is to share a little snippet of discussion, to try to get people to think a little bit about being better citizens. And that is to be a better citizen, to understand things, look for the facts, the who, the what, the where, and the when, and also look for and try to understand the viewpoints of your neighbors and, the people that are politically misaligned with you. You got to try to understand them because they have information, they have a different viewpoint, they have a different walk in life that have gotten them to where they are. And a whole bunch, and I've talked about this many times, I'll talk about it many times more, a whole bunch of this major anger that we have, us against them, that's not really there, okay? We have allowed ourselves to be divided into two tribes, basically, by wealthy, powerful people who are manipulating people because of our human psychology. They use simple phrases, dog whistle kinds of things that, adjectives and stuff that are bad and defaming of people and very simple terms, like Democrats versus Republicans, liberals versus fascists or conservatives or whatever, socialists versus fascists, all this kind of very simple one-word labels to try to cause one group they're trying to control to hate the other group, okay? And we, all of us, need to be better citizens to realize that that's not us. None of us are that simple. We're very, and most of us are quite centrist, okay? We want to go down kind of a center path, maybe a little bit left, maybe a little bit right compared to, most of us, but really a ton of common ground. But we're not allowed to do that because that's not polarizing enough. That doesn't keep the tribes under control, okay? We've got to do this. We've got to be better citizens. We have to understand how all of us got to where we are in these positions and examine these positions on a much more detailed basis to get a common plane, a common sheet of music, a common page, where we're all understanding the things, the factual things, in a reasonable, common way. Okay. Well, anyway, today's show is called Leadership. And the reason why I'm doing this show is because leadership is really, really, really important. Okay? And the reason why that is true is because a significant percentage of us humans, we are to be led. We are followers. We are not leaders. And I don't know what percentage of humanity that is. I suspect it's between 30 and 50% of us, that we really are followers. We're followers. So, if there's someone that is identified, for whatever reason, they're identified as being a leader, then we're going to listen to them and we're going to do the things that that leader says. And unfortunately, that can mean some very bad things. For example, you can have a cult, like, and maybe a lot of you are too young to remember this, but I'm pretty sure the guy's name was Jones. and he had a cult down in Guyana, I want to say it was, and he had convinced, I don't know, like 1,000 followers that he was some kind of religious prophet, and that, by following, it was Jim Jones, I want to say it was Jim Jones. And this is long. This is an old story. This is back from the 80s, I'm pretty sure. But the whole point being that he convinced, hundreds of people that he was some kind of prophet, some kind of liaison with God, and that he knew best for them. And step by step, he convinced them of this. And then at some point, I think kind of this cult and the size of it and the teachings of it and stuff like that was gaining some attention. He realized that he was in trouble as a leader, and he told everybody to kill themselves. And so they passed around a drink. It was basically Kool-Aid that was laced with poison, and hundreds and hundreds of people died because they followed his lead. Okay. And so leaders can have incredibly positive effects by what they choose to do, how they lead. And so, for example, John Kennedy is remembered, and people, you can say, how great of a president he was or how great of a person he was, but one of the things Kennedy, and then later Ronald Reagan, they were inspirational leaders, aspirational leaders, okay? And so in the case of Kennedy, we were, in this Cold War with what was then the Soviet Union, and the Soviet Union was beating us with technology in satellite technology, things with rocketry and stuff like that. And so Kennedy's vision was, hey, we as America, we need to be a leader in technology, okay? We cannot allow the Soviet Union to have technologies that are beyond us. And so he put a challenge before the American people. He said, I see us before the end of the decade walking on the moon. Okay? So he made this speech, and it was in 1963 or something like that. Anyway, it was only a short number of years until 1970, the end of the decade. And he basically threw down a gauntlet, if you will, to the technologists in government and in science in America, and said, get us to the moon. A man from America should walk on the moon. And so we did this. We worked, and it was, again, inspirational and aspirational. And we learned all kinds of technology, by the way. The space program had all kinds of positive effect for industry in general because of the incredible challenges to try to get to the moon, and the lack of oxygen and the extremes in heat and cold, and on and on and on. And the communications and just the engineering, the mechanics of it all. It was a huge, huge endeavor. But we did it. And in 1969, we walked on the moon for the first time. And so you can see the difference between Jim Jones, who is a leader, basically killing the people that are following him, and Kennedy, or later Reagan. He talked about, I think it was Reagan who was famous for talking about how America should be seen on the world stage as a leader as far as freedom and civil liberty and stuff like that, even though we're not perfect on that and we need to work on it internally. but certainly compared to many countries around the world, we were much better than them. And so, and then he's like, we should do things to extend that vision to, again, inspirational, aspirational, right? And the problem at the moment with the current leadership that we have, it's not inspirational and aspirational. It's more like the Jim Jones kinds of things. It's hate-based, okay? Mr. Trump, basically, if you don't tell him how wonderful he is on a regular basis and never tell him what's wrong with what he's doing, you can never do that, because then you become a target of hate. And this is Mr. Trump's basis for staying in office, is he is a hate monger. He is selling hate. And hate leads to violence and lack of cooperation and lack of progress. Leadership is everything. And Mr. Trump is one of the worst leaders. And if you have ever been in the military, if you've been an officer in the military like I have, you would very much recognize that Mr. Trump's form of leadership is one of the worst forms of leadership there is. Very, very similar to Adolf Hitler and Hitler's targeting of Jews and other ethnic groups to blame for the fact that Germany at the time was not doing well economically. It's all about leadership. And it's really critically important. And you cannot elect Donald Trump again because he is a negative, hate-mongering leader. And we are better than that. We deserve better than that. We cannot reelect him. The opposite choice is Mr. Biden. I don't know how inspirational and aspirational he will be, but he definitely is on the other side of, the distribution relative to Mr. Trump. And therefore, he will be a better leader for this country. For the Pro and Con Show, my name is still Michael James Ott. And until the next show, bye for now.